So Humana is maybe similar to some of the companies represented here. We're an old brick and mortar company. We're 55 years old, health insurance. So when Hadoop started, it was adopted by web companies, adopted by startups. We're very different. We're kind of the second or third wave as a traditional relational database management company adopting Hadoop, and we have Hadoop in production now. So we've had quite a journey. Our CIO went directly to my boss, who was the leader of our enterprise data warehouse. So I think it kind of made good sense to come to a centralized organization, because we're very good at shared services. We're very good at Unix-based types technology. So it kind of made sense for Hadoop to come to the IT side. And I support Hadoop on the IT side. So we're kind of a bridge between the IT resources and the analytics teams, the various analytics teams in the organization, like consumer, provider, member, strategic, different analytics teams that need to use Hadoop. We are the bridge between them and the technology. So they're very good at creating predictive models, but not so good at the command line and Linux and things like that. So I was charged with 5 years ago, go look at Hadoop and see if it could be beneficial to us, because it sure sounds like it's bleeding edge. Can it be good for us? Because we are so traditional. We have one of the biggest Oracle installations in the world, petabytes in Oracle. We're so relational database focused. Everything's rows and columns. But there was this dark data that existed within our company that wasn't in neat rows and columns. So could Hadoop help us take that unstructured data, create rows and columns so that it could further inform our predictive models? And the resounding answer was yes, it could. So we started down the journey of creating a Hadoop shop. We run a hybrid environment. So initially when we started out, everything was on-prem physical clusters. We had to be that way because of being in the health insurance industry. It's like the financial industry, HIPAA compliance. And it's even more than knowing your credit card number. We know what diseases you have, what drugs you're taking. So we're very, very cautious about security. And what really helped us after we started with physical clusters was that CMS, the government agency that runs Medicare and Medicaid, they said that we had to be in Amazon Web Services if we wanted to continue our government programs. So that forced us into the cloud. And in IT, we were very happy because we were asking for that for a long time. We wanted that scalable infrastructure where we could bring things up and bring them down. So today, when we're approached and somebody thinks they have a Hadoop use case, we look at it and specifically, is this something that is a science project? Is it something that you're maybe you're working with an offshore third party and you want to do research? So if you put the data in Amazon, you can both reach it, and you need 100 servers for 3 months, and then we're going to shut it off and take it away. That's a great case for the cloud. If it's something that in Oracle today, we run a process that if we ran it daily, it's taken 24 hours. Okay, let's do this on-prem. It's a daily job. We can now run it in 2 hours.
You can better optimize for it.
Yes, yeah. So it's a very case-by-case basis, whether we're doing on-prem, whether we're doing in the cloud. And I would also categorize the kind of work we're doing. So sometimes it's data integration only. I mentioned our data scientists, the people who create predictive models. We have over 1,000 SaaS users, and SaaS users they love SaaS, but they need rows and columns. So if we have medical records which were sent to us, they were scanned off of paper forms, we OCR them, we have a bunch of free-form text, we need to pull out features, put them into rows and columns, give it to them, and they'll further inform their predictive models with that data. So for us, that's a purely ETL use case, as opposed to when we use Spark with ML Lib or Mahout and we're doing actual analytics. So we're all over the board.
So do these things run side by side, or are you partitioning workloads based on cluster?
Yeah, we definitely have to partition because if we make all resources available to all of our analytic teams, one team is going to dominate. They're always running Spark jobs. They always have resources. These people's MapReduce jobs are waiting for resources. So our Hadoop administrator will carve out resources. You only get this much memory, this much CPU, this much space. You only get this much. And we're very much a project-oriented company where you bring money to the table. Say, I have this much money to invest in on-prem infrastructure, or I don't have any capital dollars, but I'll run things in the cloud. So it's a very much of a shared environment, a pay-per-use type environment.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
This goes back to when Google invented the Hadoop technology. They couldn't index the internet with a single database on a single server. So they created this file system that distributed the data across it. So they removed the overhead of the relational database system, but they also took away its advantages like metadata. So we lost a lot of data management capabilities. And one of the biggest things that a company like mine faces in the adoption of Hadoop is how do I show people what's already in Hadoop? Because the promise of Hadoop is that I can put a lot of disparate sources into the same place and we can mash up that data together. So we don't want to isolate the data because we won't have the ability to mash it up. And we also don't want, say, consumer analytics to put in a file that has 1 billion medical claims and then physician analytics to put the same file in there that contains almost the same 1 billion medical claims. So we need some way that everyone can figure out what data is in a file system. And in our corporate environment, we have a lot of network drives. So you can go to the U drive or the T drive or the V drive, and it's a shared network drive that everybody adds folders and puts files, and nobody knows what's in it, or that somebody's already put something in it that somebody else is putting in. Well, that's what HDFS is. It's just a file system. It looks like Windows. There's folders and there's files. How do I know what's in it? So we had several barriers to adoption of Hadoop. One of them was metadata. How do we let people know what's in it? And the people who really need to use Hadoop are mostly non-IT people, and they don't want to use Linux. They don't want to use the command line to try to figure out what's in files, and there's so many files, and it's non-traditional data, so a lot of these files don't have headers that you can figure out what's in them. So one of the tools that was huge for our adoption was Waterline. So Waterline has this data inventory product that will profile all your files in HDFS, and it will interrogate each file, and it will look, and it'll automatically try to figure out what's in the file. So even if there's no header, it'll say, based on this pattern, this looks like a zip code. I'm going to tag this as a zip code. And then when somebody looks at their nice GUI interface and sees this file contains a zip code, they could say, oh yeah, this is definitely zip code data, or no, it's not zip code data. And the product will learn from that experience. It'll say, okay, when I see this pattern, I won't automatically mark it as zip codes. We also have the ability with Waterline to do a crowdsourcing tagging, where people could say, hey, Waterline doesn't know what our member IDs look like or our customer IDs look like, so I'm going to tell the product, this is a customer ID, this is a member ID, and it will not only remember that, but it will propagate it automatically for all the files that exist in HDFS today and anything that comes in. And it'll say, oh, this is a member ID based on this pattern that you told me was a member ID. So that tool in itself has been huge for us to adopt Hadoop. We have a handful of people that I would say are true data scientists, because they can take messy, unstructured data, they can structure it, they can create the models, they can get insight out of it. Those are few and far between. Mostly what we have is data analysts who they'll say, you got to give us rows and columns. So it's a collaboration between IT and the data analyst. In IT, we're going to structure your data, and then we don't understand statistics and modeling, so you can do that part. What we want is more self-service. We want people to be able to use Hadoop without IT intervention, and what we found out is the best way is to grow these people internally. One very good resource has been Cloudera training. We have tried other sources of training. Cloudera is the best, in my opinion. Yeah.
It's like a love fest up here. Yeah. you guys should sit farther apart.
Seriously, the trainers in Cloudera, I think most of those trainers have committed to Hadoop. They know the product inside out. It's unlike any other experience that we have. We have so many data analysts who their only programming knowledge is Python. And they instantly want to say, how can I do this in Python? When they take a class from Cloudera, they'll learn how to do it in Java. They'll learn how to do it in Scala. We also had a very tough learning experience with global resource partners that said, we have a lot of Hadoop experience. You need to hire our people. And they maybe had a month more experience than us because they took some online classes. There's not a lot of really good experienced Hadoop people out there. And maybe if there is, they want to work for Google, they want to work for Netflix, they don't want to work for an insurance company. So training your own people has been absolutely huge. Waterline will do that for you. They will tell you this looks like a social security number. So during the profiling process, that is definitely huge because it was kind of a bonus. To me, I needed certain things from Waterline, and they gave me everything that I wanted, plus a couple of few extra things. Like one thing that I love is their bookmarking. Bookmarking doesn't sound like a big deal. You find a file, you're searching, and you find a file, and you bookmark it. So what does that give you? You think, well, I can easily go back and view that file in the future, but the cool thing about it is that you've showed interest in this file. So as more and more data comes in for that file type over months or years, if the schema ever changes, Waterline will notify anybody who's bookmarked that file and said, hey, the schema changed. You know, in this field, it used to be 5 numeric characters. Now it's 6 alphanumeric. It alerts you to say, look at your workflow that's going to run next week. It might go down because the data's changed.
Yeah, here's why your app's going to break.
The first thing I'll say is that when we decided to use Hadoop, our driving benefit was that we didn't want to use Hadoop to replace anything. We had some consultant companies come to us and say, it can replace your EDW. And we really wanted
I have stories about that, by the way.
I bet. We wanted to use it in cases where we couldn't process that data with any of the other tools in our tool belt. So Hadoop was just another tool. So we don't traditionally pull data in from the warehouse or from a relational database unless there's a case where I have unstructured data, I have some JSON, I have some freeform text, and I want to mash it together with this data set. And the best place is to put it in a data lake where it's all together. You can use MapReduce or Spark, whatever, to bring it together. But when we do that, we'll use something like Scoop to scoop it out of the relational data store, put it into HDFS, and then tell Waterline, profile that. And then in the future, anytime that comes in through Scoop, automatically profile it.